Okay, here we go with geometry notes. The fourth one for this chapter, Totes 19, find and use slope of line. So this should be a repeat of something you know from last year. And the question is, how do you find the slope of a line given the points of 2 points on the line? And the way to find the slope of a line given the coordinates of 2 points is to plug it into the slope formula that is the rise over run, or the formula y2 minus y1 divided by x2 divided by x2 minus x1. But you have two postulates for this note. Postulate 17, the slopes of parallel lines, means that your slopes will be exactly the same slopes. Let me find my highlighter. That parallel lines have same slopes. Perpendicular lines, their slopes, the product of their slopes is -1. Basically, their slopes are multiplicative reciprocals, multiplicative inverses of each other. One thing to remember is our slope formula that you should have learned from last year in your Algebra 1 class with whichever teacher you had. But I have put it on your notes again so you could remember that the slope formula was y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, or on a graph you could use rise over run. Our first example here is find the slope of the line Q and the line R. Q is going diagonally through our graph in this particular fashion, and I have 2 points on my graph. 8, 7 is one of my coordinates, and 5, 5 is my second coordinate. So if I plug it into my slope formula, remember your slope formula is y2 minus y1. This is x1 and y1, x2 and y2. So that means I'm going to pull 5 minus 7. And on bottom I'll have 5 minus 8. And we're going to find out what it equals. I'm going to grab my calculator here. And let me clear what is there. And I'm going to go ahead and make this a fraction so that I have I'm going to do 5 minus 7. I'm going to make that a fraction. 5 minus 8. And it gives me negative 22 over 5. Oh, you cannot see that. Worth a flip. If I turn that light off, you still can't see it on this calculator. It's very, very light on the screen. One way to do this is to put it in parentheses. And then make sure you math frac it. Oops. I put an A on my screen and enter, and I'll still get 2/3 on that screen. Okay. Alright, so my slope of my line Q, I'm going to put slope of Q is 2/3. Oh, let me slide over so you can see it. My slope of Q is 2/3. And then they want me to find the slope of R. R was going in the other direction. If I can find my pins. Actually R is a horizontal line. Right there. The two coordinates on the line R are 0, 5, and then 5, 5. And if you don't remember what the slope of a horizontal line were, then we'll plug it into our formula. x1, y1, x2, y2 means my slope will be 5 minus 5 over 5 minus 0. 5 minus 5 is 0 over 5, which is the same thing as 0. So the slope of a horizontal line is 0. Let me put a little R right there. The slope of R is 0. Okay. If I look at example 2, it says find the slope of each line, and then it's asking us, is A parallel to B? Well, if I look at my lines, they certainly do not look parallel. I can tell right there. But let's do our math to see what we come out with. So I'm going to first do line A. The two coordinates on line A are negative 4 and 6 with 0, 3. And I'm going to plug them into my slope formula over here on the side. I'm going to have 3 minus 6 over 0 minus a negative 4. And if I plug them into my calculator, minus 6 divided by 0 minus a negative 4 in that fashion. And I want to math bracket. I come out with negative 3/4. And then if I want to do the next line, B. Okay, B has 2 points of 1 and 7. The other one is 6, 2. I'll plug it into the formula again, just so remember. I'll write my coding down. That'll be 2 minus 7 over 6 minus 1, and I'll type that in my calculator. And if I math bracket on my calculator, I see it equals negative 1. And there are my two slopes. Notice the two slopes are not equal at all. And because of that, we can say that A is not parallel to B. So I draw a line through the parallel symbol. Alright, the example 3 says line K passes through the points negative 1, negative 4. 3, 4. And then 3, 6. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so I plotted those 2 points. It says a line actually goes through them. So let me find a straight edge. My pillbox. As close to the straight edge as I have right now. And, whoops, I missed my line. But it's pretty close. It says graph the line perpendicular to K. So this is line K. That passes through the point negative 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. Passes through that particular point. Well, the way to do this is I want to find the slope of this line. So my two coordinates were negative 1, negative 4, and then 3, 6. I want to find this one's slope, which will be 6 minus a negative 4 over 3 minus a negative 1. Well, if I type it in, 6 minus a negative 4 divided by, whoops, I forgot parentheses, minus negative 4 parentheses divided by parentheses 3 minus negative 1 parentheses, so I have it in this, make it look like this, and I want a math bracket, and it gives me 5 over 2. Alright, I want to find the perpendicular slope. Okay, perpendicular, that's the upside down T. The perpendicular slope up here says the product has to be a negative 1. Well, to find the perpendicular slope, basically, I want the multiplicative inverse. Okay, I want to write that word in there. Multiplicative inverse. In other words, I'll leave it there a second. In other words, I want to be able to multiply 5 halves by the multiplicative inverse to get a negative 1 as the answer. Well, the only way to do that is to actually flip this over, so that'll be 2 over 5. That's the inverse. And then it says the multiplicative. This one is positive, so the second one has to become negative. If I actually multiply these two things together and follow the property, 5 halves times negative 2 halves, negative 2 fifths. If I actually multiply this, you can see it in your calculator, 5 divided by 2, parentheses, negative 2 divided by 5. If I actually type it in and enter, I come out with an answer of negative 1. So the clue here is to flip it and change the sign. That will give you perpendicular lines. Now, the purpose of that is now I'm going to use this slope, -2/5, and on my graph, I'm going to use it. Remember, this is rise over run. Therefore, this is my rise, and this is my run, so I'm going to go down 2 and right 5 from my point. Down 2 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 right there. Down 2 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 right there. And then I need my straight edge again. And I'm going to draw my line in that fashion so that this will actually be a right angle. And you should be able to, let me try it first to make sure. Take a piece of paper and it fit right in that corner so that you can see that it is actually a right angle. It is perpendicular. Okay. The second page is you doing your independent practice. You have 5 of these examples to work through, doing the same thing I was doing. On 1, you're going to find lines P and S, slopes of those lines. On 2 and 3, you're finding out whether A and B are parallel or not. Make sure you use your formula to verify it. And then 4 and 5 are doing what I just did, finding the perpendicular, or graphing the perpendicular line through given points. Make sure you do those problems and answer your summary from your essential question, and your password for this notes is blue.